Games Workshop has been around for more than a while now, and they have had their fair share of good and bad sculpts. As time goes by and trends change, some models can be left by the wayside. One such kit in particular is that of the Khorne Berzerkers. Now, when I first started playing 40k and I got started with my Chaos Space Marines, I never thought much of these models. That was until I saw this amazing Khorne Berzerker conversion by the GW painting god himself, Duncan Rhodes, whom, if you don't know, actually started up his own channel, so check him out if you're still craving those creamy, too thin coats. After giving the model a quick once over and doing some research, I managed to figure out how the model was actually converted. The two main components you'll need for this conversion is a new Chaos Space Marine squad, as the proportions are much sexier than that of the old kit, and a World Eater's conversion kit. As I'm going to be taking full advantage of all these bits. I did manage to snag this conversion kit from a guy on Facebook, and they've been sold out on the Forgeworld website for quite some time now. I think it's time we jump in and get this show on the road. I started by grabbing all the necessary bits and began cleaning them up. I'll set the plastic bits to the side for the time being and get the resin components all ready. When working with any sort of resin, it's always good to give them a gentle bath in warm, not hot, soapy water and remove any possible mold release agent. If you do skip this step, you might find that your paint stays socially distanced from your actual model. Once they're all prepped, I just give them a quick pat down with a paper towel and leave them to dry for a while. Halfway through filming this video, I made the split decision to replace my trusty old cutting mat. I've had this one for nearly 10 years at this point, and it definitely shows. I think this new one looks much better, and I think it's time we finally start on this conversion. At this point, I have made a couple test models using these parts, just so I knew what I was doing and what steps I needed to take for these guys. If you want to see the full squad though, make sure you leave a comment down below and I might showcase them in a future video. Now that we've got all the prep work done, it's time to get stuck in. Firstly, we'll need to make space for the torso to sit in. As these new models are monopose, we will have to be making some very nice slices. So I started by slicing through the front of our original torso, and being careful not to cut away too much. I still want to keep a lot of these bits for future projects, and you don't want to have too much come off at once because then we'll have to end up resculpting it at the end. I just repeat the step on the back, and now I'm left with this. As you can see, it's a nice little flat base, so when we push them together, it does sit quite nicely. We'll grab our donor torso now and make some comparisons. So I know what actually needs to be modified. As you can see, if I glue the new torso in as it is now, it would be slightly too tall. So I'll just carefully snip the entirety of this bottom belt off and it'll fit much better now. To attach this first bit, we are going to have to use super glue. Normal plastic glue can't be used on resin components as it relies on melting the original plastic together. I just started by dabbing a little bit onto the surface and holding them together for a few seconds. This Loctite bonds pretty quickly, so you gotta make sure you do things properly the first time. Lucky enough, this stuff dries quick enough, so we'll be able to get this bad boy done in no time. Berzerkers are formidable warriors, so a set of arms is always a necessary addition. Now, unlike the old Marine kit, these new models are sculpted so that both the arms and the shoulder pads are one piece. This isn't true for every single one of them, but for the majority of this kit, they are singular pieces. This is a bit of a problem for us, as I'm going to be giving these guys specific shoulder pads, but luckily enough, we do have this technology. Starting with his left arm, I didn't actually have to do too much work with this one. The shoulder pad for this particular arm is detached, so it was just a matter of gluing our brand new World Eater shoulder pad on and attaching it to the main body. There are a few models in this kit that do lend themselves very well to this conversion, and you can see them as they'll have the pistol and the sword already. This hand was also already holding a chainsword, so it actually made my life much easier. I don't own a 3D resin printer, so I wasn't able to source or print any Chaos Space Marine axes for this, but I think the chainswords do a pretty good job. If you do encounter one that isn't holding a chainsword or a chain axe, I do recommend carefully slicing behind the hand and attaching it to your main assembly. Just make sure to use appropriate glue depending on the material. Moving on to the right arm, we would have to make some cuts. You can approach this in one of two ways. The first involves cutting down the shoulder pad into an arm-like shape and then gluing the brand new shoulder pad on, or just cutting the arm completely off at the base. It just depends on whether or not you do want to preserve the shoulder pad. I decided to go for the second method. I'm going to cut the arm off and glue it to the new shoulder pad, but that does mean that we will need to mix up some green stuff and then attach it to that. I mixed up a small batch and proceeded to squish it into place. This will give us a solid foundation for attaching the bottom of our arm. I just glued the arm to the bottom and then attach it to the body once the green stuff had cured. For the final step, I'm going to just super glue his head in. I tend to leave this step until last as I can position it looking in the right direction. If you've got him pointing a gun one way and his head facing the other, it doesn't always make sense. Doing this allows us to give the model a good sense of direction, which just helps with the overall consistency. Now, I don't like having boring bases, so I quickly whipped up something for him with some cork coasters, PVA, and sand. And with that, the only thing left to do is slap some paint on, leaving our little guy looking something like this. I am actually really happy with how this guy turned out. I went for a slightly grim dark aesthetic for this, and I think it really suits the murderous nature of these guys. I think it definitely, compared to the old model, looks much better. Those proportions are nicer and we don't have that weird uncanny valley when it comes to their overall aesthetic. If you have any suggestions for conversions or future projects you'd like to see, make sure you let me know in the comments down below. If you do want to support the channel, make sure you leave a like so that I know you're enjoying the videos. And don't forget to subscribe so you can keep updated with everything I do. I will be making plenty of conversions and painting videos in the future, so I can't wait to see you guys around. And until next time everyone, happy wargaming.